With the release of Evil Dead Rise, I figured it would be the perfect time to stop and rank all of the 5 movies in the Evil Dead franchise from the worst to the best. Let's get started. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ben. On this channel, I love to talk about movies and TV, and if you also love to talk about movies and TV, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. If you're new to these types of videos, basically I'm just going to be ranking the Evil Dead franchise. This is my personal ranking of the 5 movies, but this list is going to have its fair share of hot takes, so join me down below in the comment section and let me know what is your ranking of these 5 movies. We're going to have different opinions. Just so you know, I'm not the biggest Evil Dead fan, so I might have some movies lower than others. And that's totally okay if you have a different ranking than me. That's why movies are subjective. Without any further ado, let's get started. In last place, I have the one that started it all, The Evil Dead. I've seen this movie twice now, and even on first viewing, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. But then on rewatch, I just went down to start thinking that this movie is just not good, period. It's pretty poorly made. Sam Raimi, this is his directorial debut, and you can tell that he did not have a lot of money to work with. But you know, I give props to him for making a movie with his friends, and now it's one of the most critically acclaimed, and audiences love it to this day, one of the most acclaimed horror movies of all time. I just don't think it's even that good of a movie. The acting is off and the editing is bad. You can even tell that through the first 5 minutes of the movie. It's admirable due to the use of practical effects, one of the movies that really was groundbreaking for practical effects. It's fairly innovative for the time, though it's not the greatest holding up in 2023. But this movie is just so slow and borderline boring for me. The makeup is great, which is another plus, but most of this movie to me just feels like mindless violence, and the movie has terrible characters that I don't even remember really any of their names besides Ash. But Ash is one of the most celebrated horror movie characters of all time, so I'm gonna remember that. In 4th place, I have Army of Darkness. It's funny how when this movie starts off, it basically retcons the ending of Evil Dead 2, which we'll talk about more in a second. Why they retconned the ending, I don't really know, but this movie just has dated visual effects, which is kind of to be expected. It's too campy for me, though. When a movie fully leans into being very silly, it's very rare for me to really get on board with that. And I just mentioned Ash. In this movie, he is an overconfident D-bag, and just an overall annoying character that I'm not going to want to root for when he's the leading character of the movie. I just don't care about anything in this movie as well. If I'm really reaching for some positives, I guess the final act battle is kind of cool. You know what, this movie is basically just an hour and 20 minutes, but it feels a lot longer than that. So for me, Army of Darkness doesn't work. Coming in 3rd place, I have Evil Dead 2. This movie has a wild opening, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll get on board for this. But similarly to what I was mentioning earlier, your enjoyment factor will depend on how much you can tolerate dumb, campy gore with almost no story, which doesn't work for me. I was just criticizing Ash as a character, but I will say that Bruce Campbell goes all out, specifically in this movie. Props to him for dedicating himself to the role. And there might be more room for enjoyment, I suppose, in this movie, as it is a bit more self-aware. But once again, that's me really reaching for some positives, because I just don't think this movie is interesting. There's some cool production design, don't get me wrong, but once again, was not for me. In 2nd place, we have Evil Dead from 2013, which really is a legacy sequel. A lot of people call this movie a remake. It's not really a remake, though, because it kind of directly references Evil Dead, so it's kind of a movie that retcons anything that happened in between the original The Evil Dead to now Evil Dead. This movie has a very dark and seedy atmosphere that is right out of the gate established, and the ugly color palette helps create that. The posters of this movie has it being claimed the scariest movie of all time. I don't think it's that scary at all. Maybe that's because I watched it in broad daylight. There are some weak performances too. It's at times very graphic and bloody, but not as much as another movie that we're going to be talking about in the first place. But really, this one for me, it's better than the originals, definitely. But it's so by the numbers and disposable that I'm not going to be left thinking about it for a while. It's a typical 2010s horror movie, but it still kind of feels like a early Zeros movie. It was in that bit of a weird time where they were making movies that felt like they should have been made a long time ago. It's just very mediocre and, like I said, disposable. Coming in 1st place is the newly released Evil Dead Rise. I debated on making this video because I didn't want to just trash on all these movies before I saw Evil Dead Rise. But after seeing it, I realized that it was actually a pretty good movie. And if you want to check out my full review, my full thoughts on the movie, I'll leave my review linked right up above. But while this movie has a tendency to rely on cheap jump scares and the characters aren't the greatest nor memorable, this movie is gnarly from the opening title card drop to the following hour and 30 minutes, which has some grotesque body body horror, and it's very creepy, it's very atmospheric in that sense as well. It pays homage to other horror movies, specifically the previous Evil Dead movies. It has some comedy sprinkled throughout, carrying on from what the originals did. I even had to turn away at times due to how grotesque and creepy it was. Obviously very bloody and just a really effective horror movie. I'll say it once again, if a horror movie delivers on being an effective horror movie, that means it's doing something right. It's either making you scared, making you feel on the edge of your seat, obviously tense and gonna have you looking away from the screen. Some moments are even damn near horrifying, and it is a really solid horror movie. But that is it. That is my ranking of all the 5 Evil Dead movies. Once again, make sure to join me down below in the comment section and leave your ranking of the movies. I'd love to see your list, and thank you so much for watching this video. And if you did enjoy, again, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as well as that notification bell so you don't miss any further videos. And as always, look forward to more videos and reviews coming soon. My name is Ben, people call me Meter, and I'll see you guys in the next one.